Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Saints won last night by the hardest.
Boy, that's a pretty game, wasn't it?
Let's see what the Tigers are going to do against Arkansas. They're going to do good.
Good morning.
Patty, would you take a seat? We'd like to welcome to the non-public school council, Ms. Dr. Patty Davis, who is the superintendent in the Diocese of Baton Rouge. So welcome, Patty. I just told her she had to sit down. She can't go get coffee. We do that ahead of time. And also Molly Williams, welcome, with Montessori here in Baton Rouge. So welcome to the illustrious group of non-public school council. Your reward is in the next life. So we open with roll call, please.
Dr. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Chazal. Here. Dr. Davis. Here. Ms. Gonzalo. Here. Dr. Houston. Present. Ms. Laura Bier.
Here.
Ms. Louise. Here. Ms. Patrick is not present. Sister Carol.
Present.
Dr. Williams.
Here.
And Ms. Williams.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And I just noticed that on your agenda that Sister Carol listed herself as the co-chair.
That's right, I moved myself up.
So she has moved herself up in the world of the council. So
I've only been doing this 10 years.
I'm not sure why she wanted to be the co-chair, but that means that I don't have to show up at the next meeting. Thanks, Sister Carol.
I did ask a question. Did Lisa, is she absent with permission to be absent?
Yes.
Okay, okay. I just had to ask.
You're going to deduct her from her?
No, I'm stuck on the bridge.
Oh,
I didn't get
okay.
to come and I got a hateful
All
letter.
right. Okay. At this time, we'd like to go around the room and invite the people who are here to introduce themselves. We really have a big crowd today. Is there a prize going to be given today? We'll start in the back.
Brad Stevens, County Executive Scholastic Incorporated.
Teacher Baldwin, Office of School Choice. Dr. Andrew Kramer, the Catholic University of America.
Daryl Hagan, Catholic University of America, with women accreditation.
Nikki Landry, Executive Director of Education Policy, Department of Education.
Denise Bourgeois, I'm Executive Director for Non-Publics in Office of School Choice.
Sister Ann Middlebrooks, Diocese Shreveport.
Pam Schooler, Interim Assistant Superintendent for Office of School Choice.
Caleb Moore, Deputy Chief of Staff, Office of School Choice.
Keith Lachey, School Choice Liaison, Department of Ed.
Kenya Jenkins, Division of Federal Support and Granting Relations.
Chauncey McGilvey, Division of Federal Support. Daphne McCoy, State Ombudsman, Office of Federal Support and Granting Relations.
Alicia Bentley, Office of Federal Support and Granting Relations. Christy Ballou, Director of Certification.
Arthur Joe Frion, Executive Director of Educator Certification and Background Clearance.
That's a long time.
Dr. Sanders, Executive Director of Citizen Education Choice.
Ronnie Morris, SC District 6. I wanted to take a moment to thank Mr. Brian Hightower for his service on the board and also to welcome Dr. Patty Davis. So thank you so much.
Thomas Rock, I'm retired superintendent from Diocese of Alexandria and member of Bessie for 2 more meetings.
Sister Carol can help you.
Kevin Calvert, Bessie staff.
Your name?
Dr. Renell Houston, Archdiocese of New Orleans.
Paul Baker, I'm the headmaster at the School of Acadiana, kind of one of the independent schools.
Kathy Bowie, Superintendent of the Education School here at Catholic.
Holly Williams, Center School, Montessori School, Baton Rouge.
Ms. Burton. This is again. I saw you.
Good morning, everyone. Burnell Cook, Executive Director of Federal Support and Grantee Relations.
Thanks to all of you for being here this morning.
What about our side?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I already talked about you. Sorry.
Well, I'm Sister Carol, Ursuline sister from Kentucky, and I serve in the Diocese of Shreveport. Kimberly Gazzola, Superintendent for the Diocese of Lake Charles.
Mark Williams, Superintendent, Diocese of Fulton Thibodeau.
Michelle Chasson, Principal, Edie White Catholic High School with the Diocese of Pocatello.
Patty Davis, Superintendent of
We were really welcoming the guests of the assistant.
Well, you said right now, you said Paul.
Oh, okay. See how we get along? Okay, wonderful group. Okay, now, you should have received the minutes, so I need a motion to approve the minutes of the July 18th meeting. Mr. Carroll, second. Raynell, all in favor? Okay, our first item on the agenda is consideration of an update report regarding the Louisiana Scholarship Program and School Choice Program for students with disabilities. So who's up? Motion to receive.
I know that Deidre's going to do that, but I wanted to ask Keith if he would make an introduction first.
Kimberly, second. Dr. Baker. Okay, Keith.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have trouble hearing sometimes, so I'm sorry about that. No, I just want to formally announce that Pam Schooler is our interim assistant superintendent in the Office of School Choice. She comes to us with a plethora of educational experience, and we are super pumped to have her here. We're also, she's a huge asset already to the School Choice office, and so she's just moving into this position as interim, and I can't tell you enough how much it has been a joy to work with her. And she has a perfect partner with her, Caleb Moore. And although Caleb probably looks relatively a little bit young, I've been told, and I agree with this, that he's an old soul.
That is very true.
So we're pumped to have Caleb here's Deputy Chief of Staff position, and these folks are going to do and have continued to do a very good job working with you. Again, don't hesitate at all to reach out to any of us in the Office of School Choice. We're here to serve you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deidre.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, I just want to give you all a brief overview. Here. All right, I just wanted to give you all a brief overview of our scholarship application count as of February 7th, 2023. So we had 6,863 LSP applications received. We had 135 schools that submitted a notice of intent, and we had 1,358 new applicants for our Louisiana Scholarship Program. For our School Choice Program for students with exceptionalities, we had 515 new eligible applications for the 2023-24 school year. We had 21 schools that submitted a notice of intent, and we had 156 new applications for this current school year. So for our LSP and SCP, and this is current enrollment as of our Q1 count, which closed a week ago. So the total applicants that we have for our LSP program is 6,202 students as of Q1, and we had a total of 125 schools that reported for those numbers. For our School Choice Program for students with exceptionalities, we have a total enrollment count of 457, and we have 21 of those schools that reported for that Q1 enrollment. So I'm very happy to say all of our schools reported on time for our Q1 enrollment, so we were so excited about that. Yes.
On the school exceptionalities part, that's only for parishes who have a population of 200,000?
Not 200,000.
90,000.
Yes.
It's still that way?
It's still that way. It hasn't changed. And those parishes have stayed the same. They've been the same. We haven't got any new parishes on board, probably, I know, since before I started.
Just briefly, why 190,000? I have Monroe, it's not near 190,000. That was just a number?
That was just the number that was in place when I came. I would need to check the bulletin. Denise, do you know any different? I know that bulletin-wise count, I think that's what's listed, but I'm not 100% sure. I need to check that.
That is what's listed, so we'll have to look into some history on that.
As to why is that number. Okay. Any other questions about those two slides? Okay, I'll turn it over to Denise.
Okay, I wanted to continue with a few slides. Last time I presented some interesting analysis that we hadn't done before, and so I'm going to continue down that path every meeting. We're going to keep peeling back the onion so we can try and make LSP in particular and SCP as successful as possible, and TDC, which is very successful. We want to make sure we keep going down that path. So last year, last meeting rather, we asked the question as to why some of the LSP numbers were down. And I did some specific research for Dr. Houston, and that really led me to look to a prior year and see how it ebbs and flows across the state. This is from 2021 and 21-22 school year. And you can see that year we had a big drop in EBR. And then you can see there was a smaller drop in Orleans and St. John, Jefferson, and Caddo. What's interesting about that is, if I can get the right one, the next year, EBR did not lose very many, but Orleans took the lead in losing LSP students, and that's the year that I had done some research for you. So I wanna keep digging into these numbers some and kind of giving you some insight as to how the program is doing, where and why. And I think a lot of the information we're finding is that there are schools that are LSP schools that students are not interested in going to, parents are not interested in sending their children to. There are a lot of schools that we wish were LSP schools that aren't. And so there's a gap there. And as we talked last time, we also have a gap as far as high schools go. So that all feeds into that. There's no particular single reason. You know, when I did that research for Dr. Houston, there were probably 5 or 6 top factors that led into that big drop for her. But it was no one specific reason. But I think if you really look at the tide and how it goes, the students are just not finding the schools that they want to go to. So overall, the program is in very good health. Our enrollment is actually up this year from last year, and that was kind of a surprising dip last year. We expected that it would have gone up, coming back again 2 years after going back into the classroom, but it really didn't. But this year we did see an overall increase, and a lot of those were in the lower grades. So this is just a snapshot of the appropriation. We are holding steady on the dollars that we're receiving from the legislature. We had estimated that, again, we thought 22-23 enrollment was going to be up, and so we had requested some additional dollars, but then we based it on number of awards from the prior year and what we think enrollment is going to do. So we do have a little bit of decrease in funding this year, but that is not going to affect our numbers. We still have ample money in there for awards, so that's not a problem that it went down. But that's just to kind of give you an idea. We do try to keep it as close as possible to where we think enrollment is going to go. And this is just a 4-year overview of all 3 of those numbers as far as total applicants, the ones that were actually offered, that would have been approved if they wanted to accept the award. And then the third number were the ones that were actually enrolled in the school year. So relatively constant, no major changes. So I think overall the program is very healthy. This is getting into the application eligibility rate, which we talked about last meeting. This is a problem because we do have only 84% of all of the people who apply are eligible. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't meet the criteria, but they may not fill out their application properly. They may not have all the proper documentation. Their parents may not turn everything in, and so they cannot be considered eligible if they don't. So there has been a drop-off in that since 2020, and so I think that, again, we need to redouble our efforts to make sure parents are aware of everything that is required if they want to enroll their child in the program. And so we will be initiating a parent's guidebook this year, very similar to the school guidebook, but oriented to parents. So that'll help them with the application process in the fall. And then declined awards, we had only 120 for 23-24, which really, that goes to show you that the people who are applying are very serious about it. Out of all those thousands that applied, we only had 120 that had been awarded that declined. And there's kind of a combination here in that 40 of unknown reasons, but the 35 is the most interesting number to me. Those went to public school. They decided to go to public school after they had already investigated LSP. We had 202 transfers this year, which is about normal for us in the program on an annual basis. That's really just going from one LSP school to another. And we did have a total of 71 students on the wait list. We were able to award 41 of those. The top two reasons there you'll see, we talked about this at last meeting and that has not changed. A lot of parents put down one selection. And so if they can't get into that school, then their child is going to be on the wait list until someone either declines an award for that school or that school opens up additional seats, which does not usually happen once, once we get past a certain point in the enrollment process. So we did have 41 students who were on the wait list, but they chose not to attend any other school that was available to them. So their award essentially went unused this year, which is disappointing.
Denise?
Yes.
How are we communicating to families in Orleans Parish? And I don't even know how we did communicate, how did the state communicate to families in Orleans Parish the change in the application process? Because a lot of our families came to us after the fact and said, we went to one app, we didn't see your schools listed, so we assumed that either you weren't taking any new students or you didn't have any open seats. They were unaware, and they were at the Enroll NOLA centers where they would normally go, and those folks didn't give them our information on how to apply. So is there a plan to roll out some type of communication plan so that families are aware? I know we're going to do some things on our end as far as advertising and marketing that specific piece, but is there anything that the state is planning to do?
Sure. Deidre, can you tell a little bit about what happened? This was before I joined the team, but I know that they did have quite a bit of communication out there.
Yes, we did. Actually, we had a lot of communication that went out through our webinars. It was on the website. The schools also notified families that Enroll NOLA would not be a part of our application process this year. Enroll NOLA actually sent out correspondence saying that they would not be a part of our scholarship process, but they did turn around and send out something else, which really confused they actually confused the parents, and then they sent out letters and it confused them a little bit more. So we tried everything on our end to try to circumvent that, to try to help that, but we sent out as much as we could on this end. And so going forward, we're just hoping to, we've actually talked to the schools. We will have webinars for the parents like we always do to just give them some type of notification, as well as like parents, if students are in terminal grades, we're talking to these individual schools now so they can start sending home something in every backpack so they can go home to the parents. And a lot of the schools that we talk with, they are having parent meetings for those parents so that they will know firsthand, and it's going to be a mandatory meeting.
Yes, it's hard because, our pre-K4 and CDD kids, those are easy targets because we have those families already in our grasp, right? So we pull those parents in, we have mandatory meetings, we walk them through the process, we have an application night, you come, we scan your documents, we help you upload them, we'll help you fill out the application if you want to. It's the prospective parents that are not engaged with our school system that might be interested, which is, I guess this is an offline conversation, but we can have, we're gonna do some targeted, like Google ads and some Facebook ads and whatever, Instagram, I don't know. I'm talking because that's what I'm hearing from my communications person. But we need to know exactly where to direct them, and I guess it's to your website.
To our website. We have a crawl space going on our website where they will have a banner
Right.
that will give them more information, and then it will direct them to our page. And that's what we did last year as well. So we plan on having that again.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I think that is a good external conversation we can have. I'll see also if I can get anything that's at no cost, ideas from our comms team as well.
Because I know Dr. Houston and some of our schools that we visited on our site visits, we even opened it up if they need us to come and talk, you know, during the parent night or whatever they need, that we were running through management to see if we can do that,
Okay.
to give them as much information as we possibly can.
Okay, and I think we're gonna partner more with LFC as well, because they've done some marketing for us in the past.
That was
as well
very
for the school
helpful.
choice programs. And we haven't done that in a while, so we're gonna try to engage them as well.
Okay, so this is about TDC, but the reason that I put these next two slides in, I wanted to show how while LSP is kind of going up and down a little bit, TDC has a very specific trajectory, and a lot of that has to do with the schools that are participating with the STOs, and those are sometimes sought-after schools that aren't participating in LSP. The challenge there is the parents have to come up with the remainder of the tuition, so it's not as supportive of a program as LSP is, but if they really want their child to go to that school, then that's what they're going to do. So we do see some draw from LSP into the TDC programs in some areas. In particular, these are high school numbers. So you can see there's a big jump up there, and I think it's because we have very few high schools that participate in LSP. And I know that there are several reasons for that, and we've been talking about those reasons, but I did want to show that there's definitely high schoolers out there who need the financial assistance. We're just not necessarily keeping them within LSP. Any questions about any of that?
I'd be interested to see the 8th grade numbers. For us, high school, we enter in 8th grade, so I'd be interested in seeing those 8th grade numbers as well.
Okay. Okay, great. And I think that's the last one that I had, and Deidre is going to come back up, and I don't think this is a separate portion, is it? Oh, it is, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't have the agenda.
One before that.
Yeah.
All right, so then that's the end of my report.
Any further discussion? Any opposition? Thanks, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
Okay, next on our agenda is the consideration of an update regarding feeder school enrollment preferences for Louisiana Scholarship Program participants. I need a motion to receive the report. Kathy Moe, second. Raynell.
Okay. All right. We're just going to go over our student priorities for the Louisiana Scholarship Program. So remember, students are only eligible for the LSP program if they meet a certain income and residency requirements. To be eligible to receive a scholarship, the applicant must be a resident of Louisiana for that school year, be entering grades K through 12. They must be attending a C, D, F, or T school on both October 1 and February 1 of the current application year, or entering kindergarten for the first time. So, and they must have a total family household income that does not exceed 250% of the federal poverty guidelines. And that's established by our Federal Office of Management and Budget. So as long as they meet the 4 bullets that's listed here, they will be able to go into the lottery to possibly receive a scholarship award. So once a student submits an application and the student is deemed eligible to participate in the program, the application is then entered into the lottery. LDOE will attempt to place as many applicants as we possibly can in the preferred school choices. So for the scholarship placement, they have certain priorities that they have to meet in order to be considered a priority and get placed before the other applicants. So the first one, the student transferring from a closed scholarship school. So if we receive notice that a school is closing, those students are given preference first, so that we can get them placed because they're already in our scholarship program. Next, if a student participates in the NSECD, we also give them preference to be awarded in our scholarship program. And next, if the student has siblings that currently participate in our scholarship program, they are considered a priority. But the parent has to list those siblings on that student's application. So if the students are not listed, we have no way of knowing that they are siblings in order to give them preference once the lottery takes place.
Is there any way to link NSCCD siblings with LSP siblings? Because we had an issue this year where we had an NSCCD student awarded to one school, but the siblings were at another school. And the parents had listed both schools on the application. So the parent ended up transferring one kid so that all of her children could be in the same building.
That's something that we'll be able to ask Avela, who does our lottery for us, but, I'm sorry, not Avela, scratch that. We will be able to ask who's ever doing our lottery for us this year, but normally we get a list of all the NSECD students, and we give that to our data team. And some type of way it is ran behind the scenes so that they know that that student is an NSECD student, so we won't lose it.
So is there a place on the application for parents to say, scholarship application, say, I have one student applying for NSCCD at this school, that's this child. So, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, I don't know how that kid fell through the cracks.
Okay. That's something that we can possibly list as one of the questions on our scholarship application, because we're just getting to the point where we're able now to start revising our application. That'll start in probably about another month. So that's a question that we can consider putting on our application.
Just, I don't know how, but if we can close any gaps there.
Okay, definitely. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about the
Yes.
sibling qualification. So it says it only applies to children applying to a scholarship school.
Yes.
So if we have like a ninth grader in our high school, in our Catholic school system that's on scholarship, and the fifth graders applying to one of our elementary schools, they would not qualify for that sibling link
Correct.
because they're different schools.
Correct.
Although it's the same system.
They can still be awarded, but they just won't be under the priorities.
How will you identify?
I'm sorry.
I said, how would you, the state, how would you identify
That
that
sibling priority?
is coming from a school that maybe only went as far as 7th or 8th grade, and they're applying for high school, and you have two siblings down in 3rd and 4th grade in the school that at the terminal grade? How will you know that student should raise above others in order to get into that?
It's built into it. It's built into the lottery on the back end, because whenever you're going through the application process, there's a question there where the data team would know, or whoever's running the lottery would know. It's done behind the scenes, and it's also very easy for us to, if somebody happens to slip through the cracks and we don't catch them, normally the school catch them ASAP,
Right.
and then that's something that we can do behind the scenes and get them awarded. It's not very difficult. Okay. Okay, next,
But that's also, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
But that's also in consideration if the feeder school, the high school said they'll take 6 new students. That determines too, right?
That definitely determines, once they put that on the NOI, once those 6 seats have been filled, then that's it.
Okay.
So that's why we always try to encourage parents, and we tell the schools, please tell the parent to list more than one choice, so that we can try to get them placed.
Perfect.
Yeah, there is no official language in LSP for direct feeder schools. And so that's why we have to really rely on the parents to help with that process. But there is no legitimate automatic feeder school from one to another.
Right.
Especially the two separate ID numbers.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, so here's a few of our other priorities. Current scholarship student applicants that are in a terminal grade. So if a student is in a terminal grade, then that's definitely a priority. It automatically picks them up to send them to the next school. But if they are in a terminal grade, remember, they have to complete the application again. So if they are at a K through 7 school, they're going to 8th grade, they have to complete the application. Okay, all right, applicants attending a D or F public school are students transferring from a sanctioned scholarship school. Applicants attending a C school. So first, our system looks at C, D, or F, and then it looks at C. So that's just how the priorities fall whenever we're placing the students. Current scholarship students who wish to attend a different scholarship school, that's second. But you also know we have what's called our transfer window. So we always tell our parents, please accept the application. Do not decline the application. Accept the application and then let us transfer you. And that way they won't lose their scholarship. So we try to always make sure that they understand that. Accept it until the very end. Okay, any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Discussion? Any opposition? Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next, consideration from our office button. Motion to receive the report. Motion to receive. Michelle, second, Sister Carol. They didn't leave you till last this time. They left Christy instead. She got more than you on the agenda. She got more slides than you, honey.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see everyone. In reference to what is going on in terms of some of our non-public schools being approved through the Bessie at the June meeting. I've had a few calls, so I wanted to address it with the council because most of us do know this, but it does help when we are all aware so that should you get contacted regarding this, you will know what the response is. The non-public schools that were approved on the June 23 Bessie meeting must, as we know, be nonprofit in order to participate because schools that are for-profit cannot participate in the Equitable Services Program. Keeping in mind, for those who do not know, non-public private schools do not receive direct funds. They only receive services. So they get an allotment for services for Titles 1, 2, 3, 4. Equitable services for any of the new schools that were approved in the June Bessie meeting, at the June Bessie meeting, will start services in the school year of 24-25. This is because at the December Bessie is when most of the schools are approved, and this puts them in line to be prepared for the LEAs to do outreach, to prepare to give them services. Because here's what's happening. If they are approved in June, that's the time that the LEAs are submitting their budgets. So it's not like the private schools have a separate budget that is done and approved. Their budget is entwined into the EGMS application for each LEA. And so therefore, they must have everything that needs to be there. When we come back, we're going to say winter break to be politically correct. When we come back from winter break, this is usually when that academic classification list, the non-public academic classification list is out. And that is what the LEAs use to identify which schools in their area they need to reach out to see if they are interested in participating in the Equitable Services Program. And then from there, we start the planning, the paperwork. They fill out an intent form, or either they say, no, we're declining. And then from there, if they want to, they talk about the services, they go through everything, fill out the affirmation of consultation, and with that, as the LEA continues to plan, somewhere between April and May, we now understand about allocations, and that enrollment number that is on the non-public schools academic classification list is what the LEA uses to determine their Title II and their Title IV allocations. So hopefully this will help clarify why is it that a school that's approved at the June Bessie has to wait until that next school year. Also, as I stated in a nutshell, the next bulletin. In addition, LEAs are also obtaining the October 1st count for those schools that are on the list. This is the count that is used, just like for public schools, to identify the numbers for Title I services. So this tells us who and which students qualify for free and reduced lunch, because that number generates the funding and the allocation amount for the LEA to provide a Title I program. Again, this is not a program that the private schools do themselves. That program is through the LEA, because the LEA is the fiscal and program manager for anything related to non-public services. Now, the next thing is, as I stated, most of the LEAs start that planning and those consultations that we call timely and meaningful consultations somewhere right after the winter break in January. This again is where everything is discussed. And then once they know what the allocation amount is, this is when we go into the phase of deciding what is going to happen, especially in terms of Titles II and IV. Now, I know you say, she always tells us about budget meetings, but you know that it is very, very, very important. So, allocations expire when? September the 30th. And that is for the 2021 school year. So if your schools have any carryover from that, September 30th is it. It expires, which means it's gone. It's gone from the non-public, it's gone from the public. Also, I can't stress enough, I know you guys check with your schools, but we must remember this too is for those who are not as astute as you all are and keep up with everything. So, we want to be sure that we are encouraging all of our diocesan and our independent principals to just go and double check. If you need to update the needs assessment, update it. It's no big deal, just update it. Next thing, of course, we're asking everyone to follow the workable agreements that we put in place. Now, in terms of professional development, remember, and I just got back from Washington, D.C. with our national meeting with the ombudsman from across the state and the foreign countries under the United States, and this came up. Remember that it's supposed to address a specific need, a specific subgroup, specific strategy or technique. If a principal has an issue, trying to identify that or make a connection to what they're trying to do, just reach out to me. I do not mind helping with that. Also, again, and we stress this all the time that we speak to our LEAs, your needs may be totally different from an LEA needs. I think we've crossed that barrier with most of our schools. In some cases where we may have a few new people, sometimes it's coming back up. So I need you to know that in terms of that, yes, there are times when you can go out of state that maybe that public school is saying their teachers cannot, but it's all okay. Again, keep in mind that, of course, we can't pay for direct religious PD. We cannot pay for it. We cannot pay for anything. That is why with the NCEA, they have to do the percentages, and it is up to that LEA to determine that percentage. Can you question a session that was not approved by them? Yes, you may. They should be able to justify and tell you exactly why. Now, there are a lot of great professional development sessions out there. There are several in-state, Texas, Georgia, Florida, that are great, that are addressing specific strategies. And a lot of things that we are now doing in terms of the STEM and performance-based learning. And so, we want to encourage everybody to please reach out, do that, work with the LEAs, because this is not just for the teachers and the principals. You guys too can take a part of this and go out and get other professional development so that you can bring it back. So any organization can definitely take advantage of this. As always, continue to soar, and you know that your hard work does not go unnoticed. And just remember, the sky is not the limit. You're supposed to soar beyond. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't know if I need to ask you this, Daphne, but EEF. When will the application be available?
Right, so, it is, good to go. I think we put something in the newsletter that stated on my mind for the 15th. But it's supposed to be released mid-September, so look for something, in the, non-public newsletter. So you're saying it wasn't in the newsletter last week?
Maybe
So look for something this week.
Okay.
Any further discussion for Daphne? Any opposition? Okay, our last item on the agenda, certification. I need a motion to receive the report. And I'll raise your hands at one time. Kimberly, and second, Mark Williams.
Ms. Louie, if it's okay with you, Christy and I are going to sit.
Call me Anna.
Miss Anna, is it okay with you if Christy and I sit?
Yes.
We have got a lot of information that we want to. We don't want y'all.
Good news.
We don't want y'all to faint, but we do have lots of updates that we need to provide for you all. So good morning again. We are happy to be here with you representing the Office of Teaching and Learning, the Division of Educator Certification and Background Clearance.
We're growing.
We are growing. Due to some recent legislation, we in certification are going to be responsible for all background clearance. So when an educator receives a certification, in addition to the credential that they have, making them able to teach that content grade level, that will also signify a cleared background check. So that will be for any initial certification, and it will be for any add-on certification. So in essence, what that means for a school, an employing school system or a non-public school, is that when that certificate is issued, they are cleared to teach in your classroom. If a school system, an LEA, a non-public still wishes to have an additional background check, they still can have that prospective employee do that. However, it won't be required. The other thing is that when an individual transfers from one school to another, or from one school system to another, the background check is not required, although it is still left up to the employing school system if they want to have that background check.
Okay, so I hire a newly certified teacher to teach at St. Peter Claver. That person, do I get a copy of that person's background check?
We cannot share those. And we're not going to start the criminal background checks for initial certification until January 1st of 2025.
Okay.
So when you say newly certified, that will be the case after that, January 1st, 2025. It will be a part of that certification process after that. Right now, for existing educators, we're checking the wrapbacks as we receive these applications to ensure that there's no issues there.
So we fingerprint our employees and we background check them. We have them go through a safe environment training. And that won't change. Our policies extend beyond school. So to the people who are, the applicant or candidate for certification, they are going to have to pay for certification in addition to paying for a background check to be certified, right?
In the future.
In the future. And
Yes.
then they'll also have to pay for our certification as well. I mean, our background check. And
Now, the thing about ours in the future when we do it, it's gonna be a one-time check. And because we have wrap-back legislation, once they're flagged, that one time for certification, any updates to that criminal history check, you know, a new arrest, a new conviction, we'll get a wrap-back for that, so they won't be paying for it every time. It's just a one-time thing to obtain certification initially, if that makes sense.
And we'll get into some details around some of the new legislation on sanctions, et cetera, as we go through the presentation. So one of the things that we have been working diligently to do is to improve our customer service. So I did want to share with you just some information to take an opportunity to praise the work of our team, in particular our specialists who are processing applications and answering questions. So in the month of August, our team processed nearly 4,300 certification applications. 66% of those applications were actually processed within 15 business days, which is something we are extremely proud of. In addition to processing those applications, our team answered over 1,330 questions, and nearly 95% of those questions were answered within 5 business days.
Most of the time it's within a business day or two, and sometimes we'll have to get back to you within that 5 business days.
But just wanted to take an opportunity really to brag on the work of the team, but also to let you know how responsive our team is to the questions or requests that you have and that you're submitting for us. So here you're going to note several changes to certification policy. Most of these changes are due to recent legislation, and these were approved by our BESI. We do have 2 of our BESI members here with us this morning, and they approved these changes at the August meeting, and these changes include several things. Some grade point average flexibility, the removal of TAs, military certification provisions, as well as the mixing of various types of evaluations, which I think that you all are going to be really excited to hear about, because it's going to ensure that you have certified educators teaching in your schools and in your classrooms.
One thing about the TAs, remember your teacher candidates that were meeting non-public school standards that were not certified, you were previously required to request a TA. That is no longer required. We have been sending out that communication. So hopefully any applications that you submitted for that, you've received the response that you don't have to do that anymore. And that's hopefully why we had a little bit of a decrease in the applications submitted this year.
So what you're going to see here is that our team has updated nearly 30 applications, forms, or things that have to be submitted when an educator is applying for Louisiana certification. And we've made these available to you all on the Teach Louisiana website. The revisions on the applications are going to be dated for October 1 and must be used by November 1st. So we're giving a little bit of that grace period. We're currently accepting all applications regardless of the revision date, but by November 1st, we're no longer going to be accepting those. And I do want to flag for you that we are no longer going to place applications on hold while we're waiting for payment verification or the appropriate payment. So what has happened is individuals are submitting applications, they're not including all the appropriate documentation. Specifically, they're not including the payment receipt, or they're not including the right amount of payment. So depending upon exactly what that educator is requesting is going to determine the payment that they have to make. And beginning November 1st, we're no longer going to just put those on hold. We're simply going to deny the request, inform the applicant why that request was denied, and the individual will have to reopen another application.
Do they get their money back, whatever they?
So they can use that payment receipt because it's not been used if it was denied for lack of appropriate payment.
Okay.
What was happening is we were putting them on hold, requesting the appropriate payment. People were forgetting about it, the back and forth. Signatures were expiring, those kinds of things. And so this is to prevent all of that. We're just going to say you don't have the right amount of payment or there's no payment receipt, basically start from scratch. So since we never received that payment receipt, there was nothing for us to enter. Like our system, unfortunately our two systems or our multiple systems don't talk. We're working on that too. But we would have to enter that confirmation number, and so since we don't have it, there's no way for us to use that, so the applicant can absolutely use that for a future transaction. And need to ensure that they include it the next time so they don't get bumped back.
So here we want to take some time to share with you the ability to actually mix evaluation types. I do think that this is something that is going to really pique your interest, and it's going to bode well for our educators, especially those who do sort of go back and forth between a public setting, a non-public setting. And we also, based on legislation, will have the ability to even use a third party or a vendor contractor evaluation for the maintaining or the advancement of an educator's certification. So obviously, if an employee or an educator is in the public setting, we are going to be looking for the COMPAS evaluation. If the individual is in the non-public setting, we're going to be looking for that local personnel evaluation, whatever evaluation system that your school, your LEA is using, is going to be allowed to count towards that certification, advancement, or renewal. And we're not going to get too far into the third-party vendor as we're still working through some of the details on that with policy, and we do hope to bring that to Bessie either in December or January for approval. I also want to take a moment just to note for you all that the asterisk certificates are no longer going to be issued. If an individual has that certificate, we will allow them to maintain that certificate because it's a property right. However, we will no longer be issuing those because your individuals are going to actually be eligible for a standard teaching certificate.
Perfect. So this piece right here, if I can.
Thanks to our Bessie members and legislators. Yes, thank you.
Yes. So this piece right here is what that work group that we put together on, you know, we were working on legislation at the time and we were going to bring the policy. We didn't have to bring that other policy for the asterisk certificates because this piece of legislation fixed all of that. But what it's going to mean for you all is a couple of things. There's no longer a non-public hire application that is posted. You know, Dr. Joe Brown mentioned that we revised several applications. We're still working on. There's so many more we have to do, but we hope to have them all by October 1st. So there's no longer a non-public hire application available. So that means that your HR point of contact needs to have an authenticated HR access account to be able to access that renewal hire certificate. If your educator has an asterisk certificate when they request renewal, we're going to issue them the same level. Say for example, they have a 2 asterisk. When they request renewal, if they meet the renewal requirements, we're going to issue them a standard level 2 without the asterisk. So don't let your educators be confused that we're going to go ahead and issue it. It's going to be a new certificate number, the whole 9 yards, but that will be what they maintain going forward. The same thing for advancement. If they have a level 2 asterisk and they ask for that higher level 3, we're not going to issue a level 3 asterisk. We're going to issue a standard level 3 certificate. So that's a flag for you as well. Now, we have a lot of information about the mixing of evaluations on that renewal hire application. There's some new guidance documents. If you do have what we lovingly call in certification hoppers that go from one system to another, make sure that you're verifying their work history, but there will be a specific, like you need to identify each year or role. Like if they were a teacher for 15 years in the same role, that's one thing, but then they move to another location or another role, use that on a different line. But you're going to indicate what their role is, and that will determine also how they're evaluated. So if they were in non-public, you're going to be using local evaluations. If they were in public, you'll be using Compass. There will be nothing that you submit for Compass. We can see that in our window. We have the connection for that. So it's going to get a little tricky at first, but in the long run, it will be very simple for your educators, for your HR, for us to process or renew certificates in the long run.
And so we'll pause there to see if you all have any questions about the mixing of evaluations, besides the applause.
You want some more?
Yeah, why not? Nobody applauds for us in certification, so we'll gladly accept.
Is there any grandfathering in? Like if an employee started 1 year or 2 years ago, do they still have to wait, or this is?
So this is the policy that's in effect now, and when emergency rules, so we can start doing this now. So if an educator, for example, has been at your non-public for only 2 years and hasn't made that 3 year to get the asterisk certificate, and say they have an expired level 2, you would submit for renewal of that level 2 right now if they have 3 years of evaluation period, whether it's 2 in Compass, 1 for yours, what have you. So in that sense, I guess the answer is yes. It's not really retroactive, but if they apply now, we can apply these rules now, if that makes sense. So it's a great thing. We're doing it already. We're excited.
Thank y'all for entertaining us and putting together the work group and navigating this. This is something that has, I think, plagued us for years. And we are so grateful that we're where we are.
Yes. And so that means your ancillary service, or your ancillary teaching, your EDL, all of those, this rule is applicable to them as well.
Yes.
So they won't be getting a separate asterisk certificate. They'll just be able to renew as long as they have their 3 effective, regardless of the setting.
So someone alluded earlier to Caleb's age. I think I received my lifetime certificate as an educator before Caleb was even born. But you will see that there's also some changes for the reinstatement of lifetime certificates. So as you're aware, those CB and A certificates actually lapse for disuse if an individual doesn't serve in the classroom for a five consecutive year period. If a lifetime certificate has lapsed, an individual is eligible to reinstate that certificate for a 5-year period, and if the individual receives 3 effective evaluations during that 5-year reinstitution of their certificate, they're actually eligible to maintain that lifetime certificate. So we think that probably some of those educators retiring out of the public school system, wishing to come back in the non-public setting, would be able to take advantage of this. And so we thought it was important that we share this information with you as well.
Previously, they would have had to do the 6 hours of court reinstatement coursework. That is gone from, coursework is gone from any sort of reinstatement. They will have to, once they meet those 3 effective evaluations, they will have to work their employer to apply for the actual reinstatement for the lifetime, but they can absolutely qualify once they have 3 effectives.
And part of the reason for the removal of that coursework is we know that as a school system or a school, you are providing those professional development opportunities in various ways, and so we feel like that's going to sort of substitute for that as long as they're receiving effective evaluations. Okay, the next piece of information that we want to share with you is regarding military personnel, active military personnel, or the spouse of an active military personnel. So we made the certificates available, and we flagged the military certification in our system in such a way because we have to actually have a 20-day turnaround. So someone coming into the state of Louisiana typically will have that out-of-state certification. They will be eligible to receive the Louisiana certification. We have to process that application within 20 days. So obviously we're asking your HR contacts to work very closely with those individuals to ensure that the application packet is completed fully, because the 20 days only applies to a completed application. So the individuals, if they come in, they receive this certification, they actually will qualify for exam exemption if they have have 3 effective evaluations during the 5-year period of the lifetime of that certificate that we're providing. Now, Christy, I know you probably have some more technical things that they need to be made aware of.
The application for the military OS is a separate application. It's also a separate drop-down in our online portal so that we can flag that ahead of time and pull those to prioritize those within that 20 business days. You know, already, if they have at least 3 years of effective evaluations prior to coming here, they already qualify for a higher level certificate that we would issue. So these are we're just going to issue this separate OS military certificate if they already don't qualify for that higher level certificate. And it will be a 5-year certificate instead of just the standard 3. But again, it's only for the military, the active military or military spouse applicants. And they will have to provide a valid military ID that says they're active. If, you know, depending on the branch you're in, some of them, the IDs say active, some of them don't. So if the ID itself doesn't say active on it, they'll need to provide some official documentation that indicates such. But that military ID can act as their second form of ID. You know, we have to have the copy of the social security card, but that military ID can serve in lieu of that driver's license. It'll do 2 things. It'll give us a second form of ID and identify that they're military.
So along the same vein, regarding out-of-state certification, there's 2 specific changes that we wanted to highlight for you here. The first is that out-of-state applicants will be eligible for the Louisiana license if they have been employed prior to actually requesting Louisiana licensure, and they have 3 years of successful teaching experience in the previous state. The second is for any candidate applying through the out-of-state route for certification that have not taught successfully for at least 1 year in that 5-year period preceding the date of application in Louisiana. We will issue a 1-year application, 1-year certificate, and the individual will obviously have to have an effective evaluation. And if during that first year they have an effective evaluation, we will then issue a 3-year out-of-state, in-state license for that out-of-state applicant.
So just like the 6 hours, semester hours for applicants here, this was if they didn't receive, hadn't had training or taught in at least 1 year in the last 5 preceding employment, they would get that 1-year OS and they would have to take the coursework. The coursework, again, is done away with because of the professional development. They just have to earn that effective evaluation to be able to be issued that 3-year OS. Now, some of them, if they have, you know, more than 3 years of effective evaluation or teaching experience, but it's not been in the last 5 years, there's a possibility that they would still qualify for exam exemption after they were issued this 1-year OS, and they could move to a higher level certificate, but it's all going to depend on how many years of experience they had before. So the big change here is that it had to happen, the exam exemption experience has to happen prior to first employment or licensure in Louisiana. That's the big change there. And then, of course, the removal of the 6 hours. It's just going to be effectiveness for reinstatement there.
But again, I think what you see is we're opening the window for you all to have certified educators in your classroom.
Trying to get that pipeline pulled.
So the next slide is going to be specific to some changes happening with special education exams. So ETS is actually redesigning and retiring the existing special education exams. We did list here for you the exact exam numbers and the new exam numbers so that you would have that. We are going to continue accepting the old exam for how long?
Through August 31st of next year.
So through August 31st, when the new test does have to be taken by educators for their certification there.
It's still that 1-year overlap that we accept either exam. We're still following that protocol.
And then you will notice that these exam areas do affect several areas in the special education realm, specifically deaf and hard of hearing, mild to moderate, significantly disabilities, and also visually impaired. So the next information is regarding the Teacher Certification Appeals Council, and I'm hoping with some of the things that we've shared with you, TSAC is actually going to have to see less appellants because of us opening some of the doors for our educators. But the membership of TSAC is actually codified in law, and Bessie has just recently approved for us to use the Louisiana Association of Principals, often referred to as LAP, to take the place of LACE, because the Louisiana Association of School Executives is actually in the process of dissolving. We will be presenting at the next Bessie meeting our nominee to serve on TSAC. All right, let's get into some criminal history reporting here. So again, beginning January 1st, 2025, an applicant for initial certification shall, by law, undergo a background check. A cleared background check, as well as all of the necessary items for certification, will result in the educator receiving a certification. Again, that certification signifies to you that that applicant not only is, thank you, Nikki, not only certified, but has the cleared background check to effectively begin teaching in your classrooms. In the meantime, LDOE is still going to receive wrapbacks. So anyone who already has a teaching certification, we receive that information from the Louisiana State Police, and we would be in communication with the employee's last employing school system that we have on record. So in the event that we have for your educators that they are employed with your school system, they're a Louisiana certified educator, we will reach out to your system to notify you of any conviction that the employee has.
Now, we won't be sharing that actual conviction. We would only share that we had to take action because of one of the reasons, which is either a conviction, or maybe they cheated on a state test, or maybe they submitted fraudulent documentation. That's all that we can legally release to you, so we cannot share those wrapbacks or criminal background checks in any way. And another thing to note here is the law also, so there's a little bit of, I guess you'd say, a gap. We're starting for initial educators beginning January 1st, 2025. Right now, we're continuing to receive those copies of background checks when employers request it for our existing educators, and we receive wrapbacks in relation to those as well. And we're going to check those in between, but the law also did indicate that LDOE and Bessie has the authority to promulgate rule around requesting criminal background checks as needed. We're still in the process of determining what that as needed is. It could be something like maybe after you moved out of state and you moved back in, we need a fresh one. It could be after a certain time period. We're working with our legal team to figure that out. So there will be some other updates in the future about that.
See why we wanted to sit? We figured this needed to be more of a conversation rather than a stand and deliver. So currently on our teachlouisiana.net website, we disclose the identities of any person whose credential has received a sanction. So a sanction can actually be a denial, a suspension, or the revocation. Now, at the department, we only have the authority to deny or suspend. An actual revocation has to be brought to Bessie, and the Bessie board has to vote on an actual revocation. In the same light, the only way that a certificate can be reinstated after the time period lapse when an individual receives a revocation, that Bessie would have to reinstate that certification. However, all of that history of that certification does stay forward-facing on the individual certificate. However, we do not disclose any of the reasoning for any of the sanctions that may occur.
And when he says denial, he means like denial for one of these reasons, not like we denied it because you didn't have your transcript, or we denied it because you didn't have a degree, not that kind of denial.
So there were some other recent changes. So you all are probably familiar with revised statute 15:587. Any of these felony convictions are offenses listed in this revised statute. Also, any person who submitted any fraudulent documentation to either Bessie or LDOE, and then any individual who has facilitated cheating on any of the state assessments. So an employee school system can still determine that an individual who is credentialed by the LDOE has not been convicted of or prohibited criminal offense. And the CBC is not going to be required by you. However, you can continue to require those CBCs if you determine that they are necessary.
There may be things on there that you take it as far as the character of the individual that we can't take action on because they've not been convicted of something. So you still have that right to make that request.
So, it's our opinion that best practice is always to have potential employees receive that criminal background check, especially if they're transferring from another system. You would definitely want to do that just so that an individual isn't hopping to avoid. Right, we don't want an individual to come to you, they've got a credential, you don't check it, but there was an issue in the meantime, or they're trying to avoid, that in their previous system.
And one other thing to mention is while it's not required for certified personnel, it is still required that you do a background check for all non-certified personnel.
Some new legislation also requires that any administrator, teacher, or other school employee shall notify the employer and the LDOE. Most district policies, most of your policies probably require that the individuals notify you of any conviction, but they are also now required to notify LDOE. And the reason for that is so that we can begin to take action on the individual certification as quickly as that is happening, so that the individual doesn't have the opportunity to go out of state or to another school system and become employed by using the Louisiana certificate. So obviously, once we're notified, we would begin the sanctions on the certification. We would note that it had been suspended, and then we would bring that information to the next Bessie meeting. We will notify the last employing school system of any suspension or revocation of a credential.
There are some fines that are associated if the educator does not report to us. Those would be placed by Louisiana State Police. If we're notified, we'd have to notify them. They're the ones that could be prison time, all that kinds of stuff. So you want to make sure that they do notify you and us within 2 business days. Now, of course, that is excluding weekends and holidays. We're not counting those as business days. And so just make sure that they are aware of the potential consequences to not reporting anything. And again, it's about convictions, not arrests, not traffic violations, about convictions.
Yeah.
and Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, but it could be up to 1 year in prison, including hard labor, or a $1,000 fine if they don't report that, if I remember correctly.
I think
everything is
correct except for the hard labor point.
I
don't think that's, what, I don't think that's the 1 year thing. I think that's over a year.
And then the final thing that we have for you today is that as of June 14th, per Act 392, the TA is no longer being issued. Again, those will remain valid, and if the individual wants to continue to maintain that TA, they can, because it is a property right. However, we will not be issuing those any longer.
We are going to maintain that on our end as well, as far as continue to check right back when we receive them. And we would still continue to take action if we're notified of some sort of prohibited offense accordingly. And then, of course, notify you as a school system.
So, Ms. Anna, that concludes our report.
Any further discussion? Any opposition? Thank you all very, very much. I also asked Christy if the committee that was formed, you all remember, 4 or 5 people in the committee, if she may conduct a Zoom meeting in the next couple of weeks, because some of those people are the ones that really are the ones that are doing the work and probably will need a little bit more guidance. And so she will set that up.
I'll reach out to the group that was on that original email, and so we can schedule some time. In the meantime, we did conduct our monthly certification call Monday. That deck and the recording, which has some helpful discussion, is in the process of being posted to the school system support library. But of course, you can always submit questions in the online portal, reach out to us, those kind of things. We'll be happy to assist. And really and truly, we try to do our best with the applications. If you've not reviewed the instructions of the applications lately, review those. We tried to change those so that it would be a little bit simpler to explain all the changes. But there's a lot, so just reach out if you need some assistance.
And we are gonna work on a one-pager that's likely to be more than 1 page with all of this information, and we'll share that with Ms. Bourgeois to send out to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you from the department who have been very helpful to us, and make sure that you come to the January 23rd meeting of 2024, because the king cake season will be in effect. So if you miss the meeting, you don't get any king cake to take home. You have something to say? I'm sorry.
No, I just text my staff for the EAP update. So the newsletter that you guys are going to receive this week has it, and we are loading allocations as we speak. So look for the application to be released this week.
Oh, you good?
Webinar Tuesday.
Good.
All right.
What?
Stay after this meeting first.
Okay, co-chair, you
No.
tell them. You bring it to the table.
No, I'm telling you.
I'm gonna soon do the gavel, so you tell them.
All right, just because.
Co-chair.
We have Lumen accreditation here, which is Allen Catholic University, and if the Catholics could just kind of hang around after the meeting, that'd be great. You're invited, but I don't think you would care.
I might not say.
Oh.
You're.
And thanks to Shannon and Erin for all they do for us, and we'll see, have a happy Thanksgiving, have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you on January the 24th. Meeting adjourned, thank you.